Hey, Sean. Happy not to be flying solo this evening. Yes, indeed. As I mentioned earlier today, Terry's out. Good, best wishes to he and Honey Bunny. Hopefully, things are going well. We usually have a third person with us when we get started, but today, Ms. Gage Holmes will be joining us a little bit later, probably about 10 minutes to 15 minutes or so. So we figured what we would do today is we would flip the normal rotation, and we'd start with the news and then work our way backwards to the guest. How does that sound, Sean?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, you know what? It sounded good. I was one horse away today from a perfect day at Parks. To be able to say that would have been awesome, but I don't understand why guys go out and 21 at Parks. Man, come on, man. You know a horse at Parks can't go 21 unless it's like the Pennsylvania Derby or something. But outside of that, I'm not going to be able to run those type of fractions.
That's a heck of a day, though, especially what you had to do by yourself and everything, and to put those good picks out there.
Oh yes, well the picks are the easy part, I guess. But anyway, apparently what's not easy, Sean, is to figure out what these Histo rules are. We talked about this the other day. We're at Belterra. They disqualified a horse. They moved it down in the actual parimutuel payouts and disqualified it out, only to find out that it's a mistake. And my favorite thing in the entire article here at Horse Racing Nation is that, there are going to be mistakes. Just get over it. No big deal. You know, I know you bet the 4. You probably wish you got paid, and you didn't. It's a mistake. TB. Too bad.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the day and age where everything's online, they could go out and pay the payouts. I mean, it's a good thing it's probably, not even a $10 exacta because it was a small field and they were 2 favorites. So it's a good thing they screwed that up and not somebody's $500
they didn't screw up a race in the Breeders' Cup to close out the first day and kill everybody's big 4s and big 5s. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I said I thought that was the first time it happened, and I didn't think it was supposed to happen, and now we know why.
Because it's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe you should be a steward at Belterra.
Maybe.
Yes. You can take that steward test. It can't be that hard.
Yeah, you could do it, but the way Hiss is going right now, I don't even know if I'm going to understand all the rules either.
Yeah, I think most people don't appear to understand the rules, including the people at HISA maybe, or maybe the rules that they make. There's always the law of unintended consequences. A friend of the show, Diego Herrera, on the receiving end of a penalty, a fine, and getting days for striking his horse too many times. But this one is on a stay of a HISA riding crop penalty pending appeal. And when you read this article about our friend Diego Herrera, his agent or somebody associated with him said that basically the horse was veering out, and he had to hit the horse to stop it from veering out, to stop, potential disaster from occurring. It seems to me, Sean, and maybe I don't know, maybe I believe in the keep it simple, stupid principle, but I would suspect that the stewards, this is one that they should be able to handle on site without the need to suspend somebody, then appeal, and then go to all this stuff. Look at the video. If the horse is veering out, you could see the horse is veering out. Or, you've watched enough videos or it's about to bolt. You see him hit it. He does it for a safety reason. Case closed. Don't need to appeal. Don't need to spend any money. Don't need to do anything but show up for work the next day.
That would be the logical part, but they're not going to go that route. And he hit the horse 7 times. You're allowed 6, so he literally went over that 1. And I guess he needed to do it. I didn't get to see the video of it, but this goes back to the whole Monmouth thing when they went to the no whip, and they said, "Well, what happens when this happens?" And then it was all judgmental.
Yeah, Hot Rod Charlie trips everybody.
Yeah, so then so here we are again with the judgmental stuff, and there just seems like there's no leadway or no excuses at all, that there no slack they're giving them at all. So it's a really tough situation.
Well, this seems to me, I know it's subjective, but you bring the jockey and you ask him, you look at the video, and he says, "Hey, if I don't whip him, he's veering out. We have a problem." You look at the video, the stewards have seen enough. I've seen enough horse racing video. I go, "Yeah, you're probably right on that." And then say, "You're right, case dismissed. Be about your day. See you tomorrow." But what I also found kind of interesting about these rules, Sean, that I did not know, that I know now after reading these stories, it's 2 whips, 2 strides, 2 whips. So not only are you counting the number of whips, you have to count the strides. How do you do that?
I don't know, but we've talked to plenty of jockeys to say they flat out don't count. They're kind of just, guessing because.
Yeah, but the whips are one thing, but you can only whip twice. Then you have to wait 2 strides to see if the horse responds, and then you can whip again. So that seems to me really, I mean, I don't know. Can the jockey tell if the horses make 2 strides, 1 and 7, 8 strides, 3 strides, 4? I mean, all in the course of a race?
Yeah, it's way too much for these jockeys to keep straight. So
maybe when Gage comes on, we can ask her about that. How can you tell that it's gone 2 strides and not 3 strides or 1.5 strides? Maybe like each one of those bounces up and down counts as a stride when you're riding. I don't know.
Well, and that's another good question there. I guess it would be better to be a young jockey to where you're not used to these kind of, just to be able to use the whip whenever. So she's kind of coming in, she got her first win earlier this year in January. The rules are changing now, but she hasn't ridden that long where she was able to kind of hit the horse issue. Yeah.
Muscle memory, as they say.
These riders have been riding for 30 years. I mean, I don't know how you change.
It'd be tough to change, I suspect. I don't know, but to me, there's a whole lot going on. You can't hit them if they're veering. Then you got to go and appeal, and then maybe you lose money, maybe you don't. It's a safety issue. It's not a safety issue. Now you got to count strides, strokes, all sorts of things. There's a whole lot of counting going on there, Sean. You know who's going to be counting money come Saturday, right?
Who's that? Hopefully us.
Well, we'll be counting money. We'll have a wagering guide coming out, but for the Haskell, but. Clearly, Bob Baffert sending perhaps his best out east to the New Jersey track off by the shore. He's going to run Tabia or Taba, I guess. He's going to ship east for the Haskell, $1 million race. So this is Bob's return to the big stage. Sean, that's a lot of B's in a row without screwing them up or popping them. So what do you think is going to happen? He's going to win the race?
Oh, no. Jack Christopher's in that race. I don't see anybody in that field beating Jack Christopher. We'll see if he has a good race or not. If he gets second, I would still consider it a good race. There's only going to be 5-6 horses in the field.
Well, I mean, if there's 5 horses in the field and you get second, I don't know how good of a race that is.
Well, but if you're behind Jack Christopher, depending how bad you got beat, I mean, obviously Baffert's going there to win, but Jack Christopher is going to be tough there.
But I mean, this is going to be a big race. It's going to get national coverage. And if Bob happens to win, do they interview him? Do they avoid him like the PGA people ignored Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson and all those live golfers at the British Open this weekend? Or do you think they put him on TV and talk to him? Or how uncomfortable do you think that interview would get?
They got to put him on TV and talk to him. They just won't bring up much of anything else.
You don't think so?
Nah.
What do you think Twitter world would do if somebody interviewed Bob Baffert and didn't ask him about his vacation?
Well, they may ask him, but they're not going to ask him directly. They're going to beat around the bush on that.
I think nowadays with the reporters trying to make a name for themselves, depending upon who it is, I think there's a good chance they'll be kind of aggressive with the questioning just because they want it, maybe that moment on YouTube to go viral.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we'll see that. They may interview him, but it won't be after Tabia wins because I think Jack Christopher gets that one.
All right. Well, I mean, it's a pretty affirmative statement from you. So I would say that fade Jack Christopher. All right. So tonight, if you go to Guaranteed Tip Sheet, also they do it at Stable Duel. I know at Assiniboia Downs because it is late night. It's like Taco Bell, right? It's the Taco Bell track. Would you want to call it that?
Sure.
It's the one where it's open late. What is that? Late tastes great. What is the motto for Taco Bell?
I don't even know. I don't even remember.
Anyway.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
I think it might be open late tastes great or something. I mean, they rhyme at least. But anyway, they're upping their purses too across the board. So even in Canada, the horse racing, apparently the horse racing is dead. Headlines are a little bit premature. Even in Canada, where you can see the crowd's pretty full there.
Yeah.
In Canada, for horse racing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's again good. And yeah, I've seen some late nights, and they show it's a small track, but you see a ton of people there, so that's a good thing.
Maybe they should
I don't know.
Maybe they should strike some sort of sponsorship deal with Taco Bell, like the late night track.
There you go. Or us. I mean, whoever.
Well, they can do it with us. We're not a late night track or late night anything here, but we are indeed a track we're a show that could use some sponsors. There's no question about that. And if Taco Bell wants to create that whole saying, eat late, eat great, whatever it is, be glad to do that, Sean, for sure. Yeah. So Gage should be joining us hopefully momentarily. I know she had mentioned she just had to tie a couple things up before we came live. Any particular things that you saw this weekend at the track, Sean, or elsewhere that you would like to share?
Chub Wagon won again. She's like 12 or 13 now. She's only lost once. Finally, now I forget the horse's name that lost. She was undefeated. I wasn't prepared for
Bleecker Street.
Bleecker Street, yeah.
Yes,
she was
lost to an Italian job. And then Chris P and Eddie C. Chris had noted it as his top horse in that race. In his bubble charts.
And I'll flip that to you. What do you think of Chad Brown having 4 in there and then the longest shot winning?
What do I think about that? You know, the funny thing is when the Bleecker Street ran last time, he ran against In Italian. And we picked In Italian to beat Bleecker Street. This time around, we had an Italian losing to Bleecker Street. So if we had just reversed that order a little bit there, we would have been perfect on that. But, 4 horses, pace makes race, a little bit more maybe of a speed bias at Saratoga than it caught at Belmont. And it was able to outrun technical analysis on the lead and did so and was able to close out the show. So.
Yeah, but so far on the turf, it hasn't really favored speed horses. That was one of the few. And she went really fast, too. I thought for sure she was coming back, and it was setting up for Bleecker Street, but not to be.
Yeah,
didn't even hit the board.
That only works when I don't play the speed horse, right? Because then it'll go 21 and fade. Though there was a horse earlier today at Parks that ran a pretty good opening fraction on the turf. 4 horse coming back from a long break. I think it was in race number, I think the last race of the day it was. And ran some pretty good fractions and then still managed to close that race out. So speed was holding on pretty well, except for the one race that I missed when the 2 horse came flying in the 1 horse came in flying from the back. Kind of messed me up there, screwing up my perfect day at Park. So tomorrow I get another chance to try to make a perfect day at Colonial Downs. I'll be by myself again, flying solo at noon Eastern, running through the entirety of the Colonial Downs tracks. I'll have my notes again, like I did today. I'll share them and mark them up on the screen with paint once again. I got some good feedback on that. So I appreciate that, Sean. This weekend, I went to a friend's wedding, and I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy by the name of Charlie Mars. Have you ever heard of him?
I did not, and I saw that part of the show earlier where you were talking about him, but no, I never did.
I had not heard of him either, but apparently his song, he was saying, I do. Song that's been in the movies, been on like commercials or something like that. So it's had great commercial success. And if you like that folk music with the like storytelling type aspect to it, was very good. The guy was very, very talented, good singer. So got to sit there under a kind of overcast night in Chicago, a friend's wedding, a little bit, about 75 degrees, really nice night with the lights that everybody has up in the backyard now. So they're not original anymore. We got to come up with something new. But it was a pretty nice evening. It was nice to get out. It was the first time I've been out since COVID. So it was really, in a way, kind of weird. Yeah,
I'm sure it was. But that's nice to finally get out.
Yeah, I mean, not that I hadn't been out, but like in a bigger social setting.
Right.
Where you're not like just with family and people that personally for all these years, but now strangers that you have to go say hi and, wait a minute, you got to dust off all those, interpersonal skills and try to, make friends and build rapport instantly. I guess good news is maybe being here with guests when they show up. It's good practice for those interpersonal skills to break the ice, so to speak.
Did anybody say, hey, you're the guy on YouTube I see 2-3 times a day?
No, that hasn't happened to me yet. When it does, I'm going to say why first. And if they say I made money, then I'm going to say, yes, it's me. And if they say, no, I got my ass handed to me, I'm going to go, no, that's Sean.
Yeah. Are you the guy who gives out bad picks, right?
Yeah, no, that's Sean. The guy who sits on my right on the TV screen, even though he's probably really on my left because everything is reversed.
Yeah, I'm on your left.
For sure. So do you want to put us on pause for a second and see if perhaps we're going to be joined momentarily, or if perhaps she's having some issues getting connected, because sometimes
she said a couple minutes at 8:12, so we shouldn't have matter of moments. So we should get like that anticipatory like theme music. Countdown.
Like for Jaws, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So all right, so the Haskell this weekend is a big race, Sean. That'll be I'm looking forward to that again. We will have a wagering guide for that. Here we go. Almost on cue, Sean. Just let her
There you
get the
go.
camera positioned. Because right now she's chopped off her head a little bit, but all right. There she goes. You got to put the camera down just a little bit because the top of your head's not showing. There you go. Perfect. Here we go. Well, it's still kind of the head's not showing. But anyway, hi, Gage. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate it. You had a nice win today. Tell us about it.
Oh, it was for Gennaro, a filly named Tap Into the Beat. She won pretty easy. She was 6 furlongs on the dirt. It was a pretty muddy track today, but
So you're going to go from muddy to overwhelmingly hot, right? So Wednesday you're changing the schedule around a little bit?
yeah, I think they moved the post times to 10:25. But it'll be better. You know, it's better than waiting till the last minute and then scrambling and trying to, or canceling races. So
Scrambling, that seems to be a little bit of what you're doing these days. You're going from one track to the next, to the next, to the next. So I heard you say in another interview that have car, will travel. So when you're in the car, what are we listening to and what kind of car are we driving?
So actually when I got to Kentucky this year, I had a Rogue, a Nissan Rogue, and I got in a car accident and totaled it. And I bought a Toyota Tacoma actually. And it's actually doing me like really good because I have a little tiny camper and my Equisizer. So it's a lot easier to move all my stuff around with all the moving I'm doing. But as far as music goes, I'm kind of all over the place. I listen to a little bit of everything. I can go from country to hip hop to rap to reggae. I'm just
all encompassing musically
Exactly.
inclined there.
Exactly.
It must be that rural Pennsylvania upbringing.
Yeah.
So like Sean and I, we both grew up in Pennsylvania. Sean's a little less rural. I grew up in the Poconos. So you went to Penn State. So
I did.
How do you go from Penn State to a horse? And are you a big Nittany Lion fan, or you don't much care about that stuff?
I loved the school. I really enjoyed it when I was there, but I don't really, football and stuff is not my thing. I know that's huge for a lot of Penn Staters, but I like it, and I'll catch a few games each year. I'm just not.
You're just not at the whiteout going.
Yeah, I'm not out of there. Like, I love the tailgating. That was one of my favorite things.
Well, who doesn't like a good party? I mean, I've heard that's part of the main reason why everybody gets into horse racing.
Yeah, exactly. But I actually was a groom at Presque Isle Downs when I was in college, and that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah, I had heard in another interview that you adopted a horse.
I did.
So what motivated you to adopt a horse?
I've always loved horses, and my sister was actually starting 4-H, and I wanted to get something. I was actually going to put her on my other horse that I had, who was just a rescue pony as well, a little quarter horse cross, and I was going to get something else for me, like a project for myself. And I ended up rescuing that horse. His name was Viva Los Feliz, which is kind of like my life motto now because it means like live your life happy.
Mm-hmm.
So that horse brought me so much joy, and he was great. He actually ended up being my sister's horse. He was just so kind and so gentle, even though he was only 4 years old. He took care of my sister, who I think was 6 at the time, and they got on really well. And that's kind of how it started.
So now that you're riding and you'll start getting knowing more horses, how many more horses do you think you'll adopt in the future?
Well, right now I actually don't have any of my own personal horses. I was not able to continue to afford keeping up with that after college because I was traveling so much trying to learn to ride and everything. So I found them good homes.
What do you credit all your success to here at Horseshoe? I mean, you coming into today, you were tied for 8th in the standings. You're with names like Thomas Papel, Fernanda de la Cruz, Santos Shanjor, some really good jockeys, and you're right up there with them.
I have so many people to thank. Honestly, it's been every single person that I've met along this journey. Everybody from my agent who puts in so much work. He's really, because bringing in an apprentice is never easy. He's put in a lot of work, and all of the trainers that have given me opportunities. There's just so many people. I honestly couldn't even begin to to name them all. We'd be here all night.
A lot of times when I'm seeing your victories, you're crushing the field. Is that just me seeing that, or it looks like a lot of your victories, you're just cruising?
Yeah, I mean, a handful of them. A few of them, there's definitely been some hard fought ones there, but I don't. We've been pretty fortunate here. I've gotten lucky in some spots, and it's the name of the game, and also learning the track. This track's once you get the hang of how things go here, it makes riding a lot easier. But same with every track,
Mm-hmm. So when you say how things go here, expand on that a little bit so that those who don't ride horses for a living, but instead put a few dollars on them. So how do things go there so that we can maybe go to the window and cash a few more tickets?
Well, each track, how would you put it, runs differently. Like when I ride a horse at Ellis, I love staying on the rail. There's one trainer over there, he actually told me, he's like, it's a golden rail. You see horses coming up the rail and winning there all the time. You don't so much see that in Indiana because our rail is softer. You see a lot more horses going wide and finishing down the lane in like the 3 or 4 path stronger than they do on the rail.
Do you have any, right now you're doing Horseshoe and Ellis, like you said, do you have any other tracks or any other mounts, any other tracks coming up?
I rode one at Belterra a couple weeks ago, and the guy that got me started, his name is, started riding races professionally, Gerald Brooks. He asked me to come up to Saratoga and ride one for him that he has in training with Trombetta on the 27th. And that's the week that Indiana is closed. So we're going to try and make that work if the horse gets in. So that'll be exciting. That'll be a really if everything works out.
Can you tell us a little bit about that horse?
I got on it a couple of times as a baby at Palm Meadows this past winter. But apart from that, I unfortunately haven't been around her much. I think I put her first gate work on, but
Have you ever been to Saratoga as a fan? Anything?
I galloped there my first year galloping. Actually, I was a little crazy when I got into the sport and started galloping. I just kind of went all for it. And I was working for Ian Wilkes at the time, and like I said, I just started galloping. I think I rode for him maybe 3 weeks, a month tops at Keeneland. And then he asked me to go to Saratoga, and with all of 3 weeks under my belt, we went. And but it was a really exciting summer.
What do you think your strength is right now, and what do you think is one thing you really got to work on?
Oh boy, somebody actually asked me this question recently. I would like to think that I ride smart races. I spend a lot of time watching races and studying each race individually going into it, that I think I give myself an opportunity to ride an intelligent race based on what I know I have under me and what I think is in the field. I think that my stick work is probably my biggest downfall. It's definitely been improving a lot, and I've been getting it from people that have been helping me along the line, but still room to improve, of course, as with everything.
You brought up the whip. We've talked to other jockeys. Do you count the whips? How is this new role affecting you?
That's probably why it's been so difficult for me to improve, because I'm always so worried about going over with the whip rule. They've got this new 6-hit rule in place. So you do have to be counting out there. And like I already got fined once because I made the mistake of, I thought it was 6 overhand hits. So I've been riding, at least before the whip rule was in place, I would, underhand horses a couple of times just to let them know that a hit was coming, especially with babies and whatnot. And I was riding a horse. The first day that the rule was in place, I underhanded a couple times and then I overhanded 6 times. And I thought I was good and I got my fine. And I'm like, wait, what happened? They're like, oh no, that counts. So, way to learn the hard way, I guess.
So one of the things in the rules we were talking about before you came on was that not only you can only whip it so many times, but 2 whips, 2 strides, right?
Yes.
How so for me, trying to count 2, do 2 things at one time. We guys can't do that. We got to focus on one thing at a time. So I don't know if I could ever be a jockey, but when you're running a horse, how do you know if it's made 2 strides, 1 stride, 1.5 strides, 3 strides? Is it like a bounce is a stride, or how do you know how many strides you've got?
Like the motion, like you'll feel it. It's like when your hands go out and come back, that's 1. Out and come back, that's 2. So, I mean, I just make it a point to never whip twice in a row, just to not get carried away, because they usually need a stride or 2 to respond to any whip in general. So that hasn't really been an issue for me personally, because I've never been one to do that. But yeah, it is an issue for some people, and it's hard when you get into a style or the rhythm to suddenly have to change. And I think that's what's so hard for a lot of jockeys that have been riding before these rules were in place.
Yeah, we talked about that before you came on. So do you think you're a little bit fortunate that a lot of this is happening early in your career?
I honestly, I do, because I mean, I started at Gulfstream this winter and they already had the 6 hit rule. Now they didn't count the underhand as part of 6. So when I came up here, the stewards told me when I got my license, they're like, oh, it hasn't started yet, but starting in July, we're going to have this rule in place. So even when I came up here, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to get in a habit of hitting more than 6 times anyway, because I don't want to get in that habit and then have to break it. So the fact that I never made that habit in the first place, I think, yeah, it definitely did help long term.
So you on the other show that you were talking about when you were interviewed before, you had mentioned that you have some long days, that you're pretty much, there's a gym rat and I guess there's a track rat. So would you describe yourself as a track rat?
A little bit. I like to have my space from the racetrack. It's a huge part of my life, but being able to step away from it and have my own personal life that has nothing to do with horses is definitely, it's a necessary thing. Just for, my mental state personally.
So aside from dragging your stuff all around the country in your new car, what do you do when you're not at the track?
I'm a little bit of a gym rat, and I have a dog. So me and my dog, we love to go hiking. We do a bunch of outdoor stuff. I do a lot of drawing and painting and reading, and I fill my time with stuff that makes me happy. That's pretty.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to go about doing things, right? If you can't make yourself happy, who does? And you also described yourself when you were younger, sort of as an introvert, right? Kind of a quiet. Yeah. So now, how many people now would say you're an introvert, and how did you go from being introverted to extroverted?
I wouldn't say I'm extroverted, like in a sense. I'm just much more, approachable. I've made myself much more approachable, and I've gotten the confidence to be able to walk up to trainers and other people that I work with, to start those conversations, because it's a necessary part of the job, so, but still in my personal life, I'm still I'm quiet in general.
Well, that's okay. Sometimes I'm like that too, though. Probably people who would know me would never guess that. But a lot of times when I'm out like I was telling Sean before we came on, I was out for the first time this weekend to a wedding for a friend. Oh, and it's the first time since COVID I had been like in a big setting, and I was just like, kind of like, what do I do? It's been so long. So in any case, Tell us a little bit about some of the mounts that you're looking forward to coming up that maybe some of the horse players might keep an eye on so they can cash another ticket or two, or maybe make me look a little bit smarter when I'm picking horses going forward.
Well, apart from the one at Saratoga, when entries come out, I might, look at them the day that they come out. But apart from that, I like to take this business day by day. Because if I start looking at races a week away, I'm taking away the focus from the races I'm riding today. And I love that one saying that Bill Shoemaker said, the only race that is important is the race which you're riding right now, or goes something like that. That's not verbatim. I can't remember the exact words. But so that's kind of my thing. And I did look over my races for tomorrow. I ride another horse for Gennaro that I got to ride first back this meet because she had some time off, and she's running again tomorrow. She run fourth, her first back, and she needed the race. So I'm really excited for her tomorrow because the day she was supposed to run, she ended up getting scratched in the paddock. And the owner was so upset because he was really looking forward to watching her run too. And it's actually the owner I won for today. So we're hoping.
Good luck charm, maybe.
Yeah.
So you started at Gulfstream, as you mentioned, and at Gulfstream there's some, I would say, legendary female jockeys down there in Chantel and Emma. So, and both of which are been on the show and friends of the show. How influential or how helpful they were with you, not necessarily from a jockey standpoint, but a female in the sport standpoint?
Oh, they were both so great. And it's so funny because we actually kind of had this conversation one day in the room, and they were talking about how they handled being a female in the sport, like completely opposite ways, because Emma Jane is like tomboy, super tomboy to the core. And then Chantel is like everything pink and sparkly. Like they kind of tackled the stereotypes in just completely opposite ways, and I feel like I'm just somewhere in the middle of both of them.
So nothing pink and sparkly and not tomboy.
Yeah, I'm pink and sparkly is just like a little too much for me, but I mean they're both like super awesome people to be around. I loved sharing the room with both of them. They were both really helpful individuals as well. So, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better girls' room to start my career with. They were great.
And then at Horseshoe, one of the females you got is a former UFC fighter and another friend of the show, Chelsea Bailey.
Yeah.
You don't mess with her, do you?
And no, I wouldn't mess with her.
No. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you were going to say something. My apologies.
Oh no, I was just going to say, yeah, we have a lot of girls in the room. Which is actually really nice.
Mm-hmm. So aside from growing up in Pennsylvania, like Sean and I, you and I have something else in common.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of funny in a way. We both have a Twitter account we just signed up for. And we hardly ever use it. So I can, Sean and I will, if folks want to follow you online, I see that Instagram is the best way to follow you, but are you also planning on, and I keep saying I'm going to do it, so I understand completely. You think you're going to be a little more active on Twitter?
I'm going to try. I'm honestly not a big social media person. If you see, all I do is post about, work for the most part. And my former boss, actually, John Ortiz, asked me to create a Twitter so he could, tag me in things. He's like, oh, it'll be good for you, for people to be able to connect with you. And I'm like, okay. So I created it. I'm still figuring out how to use it. I don't really know what's going on yet.
Same boat. That's why Sean does all of it for us. He's the guy that you're not going to have to implant the chip in him because his phone is already permanently connected to his hand.
Oh, boy, I lose mine like 3 times a day. I'm terrible.
Yeah, as am I. Any final thoughts, Sean, before we let Gage go about her way again?
Well, Gage, from the gate, where do you like to be? The front, middle, coming from behind?
Depends on the race and the horse. Of course, if it's a sprint, I wanna be right up there because I forget the statistic. I think it was like between 70 and 80% were within a half a length of the lead going 6 furlongs or shorter. The winners were, I forget what statistic it was that Indy out the other day. But yeah, in a sprint, I think it's just kind of common sense. You want to be up there. You want to be at least, within striking distance, what I would say. And with distance races, it really depends on the horse, like the first time I rode a horse named Herrera Topham, she did not want to go to the front. She was just like, she came out of the gate and she was perfectly happy, settling, and like 6 to 8 off the pace. We were going, I think, a mile in that race. And then she came around and closed and won the race that way. But the second time I rode her, she wanted to go to the front and I didn't take it away from her and she still won. So, it depends on the horse, the distance, the day, their mood.
Yeah. We always talk about getting new fans into the sport. You riding, have you gotten any friends or family kind of hooked on horse racing?
Pretty much all of my family and some friends, yeah. My family has nothing to do with horse racing. They don't know much about it. They don't even know much about horses in general. So my mom and my grandparents, they all watch my races now. And it's pretty cool. It's nice to have that support system.
In an interview before, you said they weren't aware of the danger. So hopefully they're not watching now. But so are they kind of more aware of the danger now? Or is it still kind of one of those things that it's kind of out of sight, out of mind?
I think until they see something serious happen, they are going to be a little bit oblivious to it. Today I clipped heels with a horse. It got shut off a little bit, unfortunately, but luckily everybody's okay. And my horse stumbled pretty bad. And luckily we were able to recover and finish and everything was fine. My mom was like, "What happened?" She texted me, "What happened? Are you okay? Is the horse okay?" And so I think it is maybe starting to set in a little bit, but.
All right. So one last thing for me. When you see yourself 3 years, 5 years from now, where would you like to see yourself at? Or where do you see yourself at? Because if you see it, they say you can achieve it. So when you're sitting there at night and you're thinking about your future, where do you see yourself?
I see myself being successful. It's hard to say exactly what I will be doing. I absolutely love this sport, and if I'm doing well and continuing to do well, I would like to stay and continue. But I have a lot of passions in life, and when I'm done here, I do plan on going back to school. So
you were a veterinarian. You went to school to be a veterinarian. So what would you go back to do?
Well, I went for veterinary and biomedical science, which is a degree that kind of sets me up for veterinary and medical school, as well as, I could go back into research. I could get my teaching certificate. I could do, a host of different things. But I think I would probably go back to med school when it's over. That's kind of, but I didn't want to go through med school and then go ride. It was like, it would take too much time. And I guess I kind of decided, school's always going to be there. I can go back. I'm happy I got my degree so that I always have that option. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. But I would really like to just focus on my career here, what I'm doing right now, and let the chips fall where they may in the future.
Sounds like a good plan. Sean, that's it for me. I know I said that was it for me 5 questions ago. It's the ADHD in me or whatever. Anyway, Sean, go ahead.
That's it for me too. Gage, just keep climbing those standings, and it'd be awesome to see you win at Saratoga.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you for having me on. It was very nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well. Continued success. We look forward to seeing you in the winner's circle.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. Thanks again.
Bye.
Thank you. All
right, Sean, there you go. Head Sean again. So that worked out pretty well. Good timing in terms of when the interview ended and when we got done talking about the news. And then Gage came in right on cue. So maybe has a career in doing what we do.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Sean. So tomorrow I will be back at, again, noon by myself to cover all the good stuff at Colonial Downs. We have a slate of guests this week. I know we'll be back for the Player's Edge this Thursday with Samantha, again from Monmouth Park. So we'll go over the Haskell and a couple of other races, probably United Nations, but at least 3 of the 6 stakes races on the card that night. But between here and Thursday, who do we have?
Tomorrow we have trainer Keith Austin. We had his wife on Jockey Brian Cup. Now Keith's coming on. And then Wednesday we have Hall of Fame jockey Jose Santos.
So a pretty active week. So we'll have a lot of good stuff to cover. Sean and I, as always, are on at 8 p.m. Eastern. When you're here, please do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button while you're at YouTube. Hit the bell so when we go live, whether it's for our pick show, for the spot plays, for Sean and I at Horse Center, you'll be notified immediately that we're about to go on. Another way that you can always be informed and answer some pretty interesting questions, because Sean's always putting some questions out on our social sites at Horse Race, the number 2 day, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Sean, so what was your question today?
How you got into horse racing and how long you've been a fan.
Do you know my story? You want me to tell my story?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
why not?
Joe,
Everybody
you know Chris Defect from Churchill Down.
Yep.
So he and I went to school together, though he denies it. Even though my last name is Beaglemeyer, and I'm sure that that's a name you would forget like that. But
I would deny it too.
Yeah, I would probably deny it. Well, who am I kidding? But anyway, so one day we're sitting around, and he says, "Do you want to go to the track with me?" So we went over to what was then Sportsman's Park, and went over and watched some races, and that's how I got into horse racing. And then when I reach out to, what's his name, Joe or something like that. I don't know what he goes by, but so I reached out to him to be on our show, and he said, "Who are you again?" So when we pass you by and you call me to come on your show, Joe, I'm going to be like, "Who are you again?" So that's how I got into horse racing. Which degenerate got you into horse racing?
I honestly don't know my first time there. I can tell you, though, that my mom, a lot of my family did like the off-track wagering, working as tellers, whatever. So I'm pretty sure my mom got me into it. And then my dad, shouldn't say my mom got me into it. My mom worked there. My dad started going, who got me into it. And then, I'm a sports fan as it is. So I just love being able to look at a program and saying, this is what's going to happen. And hope you're right, even 5% of the time.
That's a good number, Sean. That's about right.
I said even 5% of the time, even when you're only 1 for 20. But no.
Well, that one feels great, right? So
yeah, especially when you call it exactly like you see, and it comes in exactly like that.
Absolutely, for sure. So head on over to Horse Race Today over on Facebook. Did you put it on Twitter too?
Yeah.
And
Twitter's usually where most of the conversation happens, actually.
Well, I mean, I'm like Gage. I'm not all that social media literate. So head on over to our social sites. Tell us where you got started in horse racing. Which degenerate family member got you into the sport of kings, or degenerate friend that denies that they know you 20 years later. In any case, Sean, that wraps it up. Takes us from wire to wire on this Monday till we get back again tomorrow, either by myself at Colonial Downs or you and I, where I'll have some company here on Horse Center. We hope that every single thing that you do ends up in
the winner circle.
Absolutely. Have a fantastic Monday night. We'll see you tomorrow.